Good morning, Tom. I'm Nelson Sear.
Nelson Tom Cates. Very
Glad
nice
to
to
know
meet
you. Glad you could join us.
My pleasure.
We're here to talk about the Reno 150 Celebration Project. And our topic is casinos, cinema, and cowboys. And we've already done the interviews for the first two.
Okay,
You're here for the cowboys.
wonderful.
You got the right hat on.
Well, I do wear the cowboy hat.
You're the past president of the Reno Rodeo Association.
Yes, I was in 2004.
2004.
Yeah.
And how long have you been here in Reno?
I came to Reno, 1962, and my mom and dad came here, and I was a 19-year-old and going to school over at Chico State, and then ended up transferring over here and staying. I met my future wife at that time and didn't want to leave her, so I stayed here.
Well, that's great.
So-
Well, you go way back. You came in the 60s,
Yeah,
early 60s.
I've seen a lot of changes, and I was an animal science major when I came, and so naturally I gravitated to trying to find things in agriculture, and at that time there were ranches everywhere all around town. And in fact, right across the street from where we're doing this interview were garlic fields and hay fields where the Centennial Coliseum sits. And we had horses, so I found land out on Mayberry Drive, and it was an Italian guy was leasing a ranch out there and running some cows, and he had pasture, and asked him if we could lease some pasture from him and put our horses out there, and that was on the Collin Ranch.
It was, oh.
Yeah, and Oscar Scolari was leasing the Collin Ranch and running cows, so I helped him quite a bit in helping with his cows and doing things that to do the ranch. I got a job at the Double Diamond Ranch, south of town, that's now solid houses.
Yes, it is.
And I was a herdsman for the Angus herd that they had out there for Wilbur May.
Oh,
While I was going to school and lived out there, and the freeway goes through where my house was now.
well, those are two famous names here in Reno.
Very famous, very famous.
Tell us about those people.
Well, the Double Diamond was owned by Wilbur May, and he, more of a hobby for him, he only came once in a while, but they ran purebred Angus, and they also ran commercial cattle. And he had probably about 1,250 acres out there, and a lot of pasture land. And we showed Angus cattle all over California, Texas, back in the Midwest, wherever they were having big shows, we'd take the Double Diamond breed. And at that time, he owned the #1 bull in the country. He had a third interest in him.
Oh, he did.
For Angus. Yeah, he was international grand champion in 1960. And we kept him out there at the ranch and would collect him and then sell his semen all over the world.
Wow.
For racing. So it was quite an operation. It was a lot of fun.
So were you, did you live on the ranch there?
I did. Well, I got married in '65, and we had a home there on the ranch. And then I decided, well, I wasn't going to ever get anywhere working for somebody else, so I wanted to pursue something different. So for a while I managed the Albert's feed store, so stayed in the agricultural field there. And my wife was starting to teach school, so at that time I had enough hours of science to teach science, but I didn't have the teaching part of it. So I went back to school and got that, and then I did some science teaching and for student teaching, but no job. So we were renting a place out on, have you ever been to Walden's Coffee Shop?
No, I have
On
not.
Mayberry and McCarran?
No.
Well, that was my house.
Oh, is that
We
right?
lived in that house at the time, and there was just all farms around there. It was on next to the Collin Ranch, and there was the Shapakasi brothers had a ranch across the road. Their parents had homesteaded there back in the 1800s. And my next door neighbor was George Westergaard, who the school is named after here in town, and his wife taught with my wife.
Oh.
So George said, well, did you ever think about teaching elementary school? So I said, sure, I'll give it a try. So he found me a job in elementary. So I went into the education field and kind of got away from ag for a while, but I was always had my hand in that.
Yeah. Well, Reno has a long history of agriculture and ranches and.
Definitely. This whole valley has changed so much, you know, in the last years. Slowly the developers have taken, Lake Ridge Golf Course at one time was the SJ Ranch, and a beautiful place right in the middle of town. Before that, an old guy by the name of Dan Wheeler owned all that property. And
So were the ranches here prior to the gold and silver?
No, no, they came
1859?
after.
They did.
They came after, and they came as a result of the miners and the people in Virginia City needing food.
Yes.
So the entrepreneur and ranchers, they said, this is a great opportunity in a beautiful valley, so we'll raise feed and send it up to the miners in Virginia City.
That
So they made a very good living at it.
I'm sure they did. That also caused a need for the bridge, the old log bridge, to be built in 1859, 1862.
Well, they built that so you can get back and forth across the river without having to swim everything.
Yeah.
Because they built the railroad on the north side.
That was a toll bridge back then. Did they?
Yes, it was.
Did they charge a toll for the cows? A certain.
They had a certain amount of money for wagon, for pedestrian, for man on horseback, for a certain bunch of cows. They had to.
Myron Lake
their-
made a lot of money on that
Myron
toll
Lake
bridge.
made a good living at it.
He did. Well, back in the early day, tell us about the rodeos, how that came about here locally.
Well, locally, we didn't have a rodeo until 1919. So we're celebrating the 100th year of rodeo in the valley. It didn't continue for 100 straight years. There was a break in time for one period there. But I would imagine, you know, as the story goes, a couple of cowboys were talking to each other and say, hey, I can ride a bucking horse better than you. And, oh, no, you can't. So they had a little competition, and pretty soon people want to come and watch, and the sport kind of gathered its roots that way. And the roping part of it is everyday ranch stuff.
It is.
So now it's, you know, very refined and very competitive, but it comes from what we do on the ranch every day. You know, to work cows, you got to catch them some way. So
Yeah.
they rope them, and why anybody ever decided they wanted to ride a bull is beyond me. But that's a great part of the rodeo now. Is
Well, it started out with bucking broncs. And,
you know, you bucking horses, and then
That
the
wasn't
bareback
scary
horses,
enough.
and no. So, and I tried my hand when I was young. You know, I
Yeah.
tried riding bareback horses for a while, and decided no, that.
Any
that
broken
isn't good.
bones?
Oh, a lot of them. More than I want to remember, because they really hurt now.
Yeah. Well, it's a young man's game, isn't it?
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah. Well, you know what I find exciting about the rodeo is that they raise them young. I like to watch the sheep.
No, the
riders.
mutton busting.
Mutton busting.
Yeah,
That's fun to watch.
it is fun to watch. And that's a big part of the rodeo is evolved, and it's one of the you know, most watched events, and people really enjoy seeing that.
Yeah. Now you must know. Have you met Cotton Rosser?
I've met Cotton years ago, and have become a very good friend of Cotton's, and
He's a big rodeo promoter all over the
very,
country.
very big. His
been
Flying
here.
U rodeo. He rodeoed here in the 49, 50, 51, and he was hurt in a farm accident and couldn't rodeo anymore, but decided that he'd go on and be a stock contractor, and started Flying U. Pasco, I think, was his partner, and then eventually talking to Cotton and listening to him, Pasco got the job of providing the livestock for the movie The Misfits here in Reno.
That's right. He did.
And he decided, you know, I'll stay in the movie business. The heck with this rodeo stuff.
Oh, he
So
did.
Cotton bought him out. Yeah.
Oh, he did.
So he owns Flying U, and now his son Reno has kind of taken over and is running, doing a fabulous job. He's also a very good friend and doing a good job for Reno Rodeo.
Well, he was named. He was recognized in 2014 by the Reno Rodeo.
Yes, yeah, we dedicated a statue to him, and for our 100th, we're going to honor Bob Tallman, who's been our announcer since 1971. And
I'm glad to hear that.
local boy and a very good friend. Bob and I hired him to sack feed up at Albers
Is that
in
right?
'69, and we were in the Reno, or UNR Rodeo Club together, and so we've been good friends for many, many years.
He's the golden voice of rodeo.
He is. He's the known
Howdy, everybody. This is Bob Tallman. I am a product of Cotton Rosser. Many other men as well, but Cotton Rosser, like a lot of people, try to give a young kid a start. Then you find out about the man himself. You know, he's been in the rodeo business for over 50 years. That's a long time to do anything. Is he quitting? By no means. When it comes to bucking horses and the breeding program, Cotton Rosser wrote the book on, quote-unquote, Born to Buck. He was doing it like his old friend Benny Binion was doing it 100 years ago. Cotton Rosser's owned some of the greatest bucking horses that ever went to the Wrangler NFR, and the mares right behind him. Keeps on breeding with a lot of his good friends like Donnie Hutzel and Sonny Riley. His great-grandchildren will have a chance to have some of those genetics.
It's funny to watch these young announcers coming in. They all try to imitate Bob. And with his style of announcing, he's fabulous. I don't know how he remembers, and
He's pure Americana.
yeah,
Pure
Yeah.
Western cowboy.
pure Western. Talk to him probably 4 or 5 times a week.
Do you?
Mhm.
Now, is he local here now?
No, he lives in Texas.
Oh, he does?
Yeah, he's in Weatherford, Texas. Well, Poolville, Texas,
I see. Okay.
outside of Weatherford, which is outside of.
Were you here
Dallas,
during
Fort
the
Worth.
Misfits
Yeah.
making?
No, I didn't come until the summer of '62, and they filmed that in 1960.
Yes.
But my wife was here, and she remembers it very well as a young
It was
girl.
a big deal.
Very big deal. I mean, the Mapes Hotel was the headquarters, and they shot locations all around our area and down towards Dayton. They used for the chasing the horses and
Yeah.
all of Pasco's horses.
Yeah.
Well, they were Mustangs. They were Mustangs, and for the ones they used out at La Hunting Dam on that desert scene, yes, they were mares and colts, and they were Mustangs. And of course, Wild Horse Annie right here in Reno stopped a lot of that.
Yeah.
But that was a great movie with Clark Gable and Marilyn Monroe and Montgomery Clift. It was their last movie, and my hard partner Dick Pasco, who was my partner then, we did the rodeo scenes, the bucking horse, and my partner doubled Clark Gable, and it was a great production. I didn't have spent much time on it. He spent all summer in there. They all stayed at the Mapes, Charles Mapes, and the Mapes Hotel. And it was a great summer. I flew in a couple times in my airplane, but they're waiting, sitting out there in La Hunting Dam, waiting for the sun to go behind the cloud and stuff. And I said, this is just a little too slow, this show for me. So I jumped my airplane, went back to a rodeo.
Do you have any parting comments on the Cotton Rosser Legacy celebration here Sunday night? That was
Well, you know, I've been pretty fortunate in my lifetime. The people I've met, the friends I've met, and the halls and the awards I've gotten. I'm in the Rodeo Hall of Fame and the Cowboy Hall of Fame in Oklahoma City. And I thought that bronze to a rodeo producer, I call him, and to me be the first one that's been honored that way at a rodeo, is one of the best things, going to be my legacy for history to look back at. I think it's a wonderful thing with all that rodeo committee, what they put together. And that ceremony they had the other night with the Cowboys all lined up halfway around the arena, and with all the past presidents, directors lined up, it was one of the greatest tear jerkers to me. It's a good thing they didn't give me the microphone, because I couldn't talk.
Well, thank you very much, Cotton.
All right.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you,
It's a
Nelson.
pleasure meeting you.
Thank you, Nelson.
Crummer Lane is where you turn to go to Pinocchio's.
Okay.
Used to lead down to a big ranch back there, and the Crummers owned, which is now Ranch Hera, and Hera bought it from the Crummer family. And my wife lived on that ranch as a young girl. Her dad was a herdsman. He was a Basque immigrant, came over as a sheep herder, and stayed in the agricultural field until he decided that he couldn't support his family that way, and went to work for the power company at that time. But So there, he worked in that ranch. He worked on a ranch called the Silver Saddle Ranch, which is on Lakeside Drive, taking care of their cows. And
Now, where is that on Lakeside, roughly?
it's, if you go Lakeside before it makes the curve, just before you get there, there's a Brookline Rancho. It's a little place on the south side of the road. And just past that is the Silver Saddle Ranch. And the barns and buildings and stuff are still there.
The original.
The original ones, yeah. I don't know if the gentleman who owns his house is still there or not, but
That's a great drive. We love
beautiful.
driving on Lakeside Drive.
Yeah.
There's a couple of longhorns
there
right
are
on
some.
that corner.
There are some on the corner there, and I'm trying to think of who owns that corner, but I think she leases it to whoever's got the longhorns out there.
Yeah. So tell us about Reno Rodeo's cattle drive. They started in
We started that about 1990, and it was an idea of two or three of the guys that thought, it'd be fun to bring a herd of cows into town. And first, there was a 3-day event,
Mhm.
and they started fairly close to town and drove the cattle on in, and it went over pretty well. So they decided, well, try it again, and it's mushroomed. Last year, I think it was the 25th anniversary of the cattle drive, and
So they bring in 300.
now we're getting,
Now,
they lease, we did used to lease from Cotton, our cattle for the cattle drive, and he got too expensive. So we started to look for less expensive cows, and we found Tommy Lee is out of Fallon locally, and he's got quite a bit of roping stock. So they're not really cows driving, they're roping steers that they throw in. Cotton he'd throw in some longhorns, and
He would.
yeah, he'd really make it look pretty cool. But
So that's a pretty popular event now.
it's become very popular. We got a ton of people repeat every year as guests.
Yeah.
And for a long time, we allowed guests to bring their own horse.
Mhm.
But people not knowing what it's like to work cows and to ride a horse every single day would take their horse and they'd warm him up in an arena for a day or so, ride him for an hour and say, oh, he's in good shape, and come out there, and we'd have a vet out there every single night
Is that
working
right?
on tying up horses because they were so out of shape. And you ride a horse 8 or 9 hours a day and push them and they're not in shape, and you're gonna have some problems. So we decided at one point no more guest horses. The guys that actually work the drive, that are association people, they bring their own animals out,
Yes.
but they're in pretty good shape.
And they bring their own animals for the guests.
Now, they rent horses from
they do.
from Donnell, who's down out of Virginia Lake. He has a pack station
Okay.
and does rides all summer. They lease horses from him, so he brings all the horses, and the guests pay for the horse and for the part on the drive.
It's a pretty authentic drive, isn't it?
It is very, yeah. I've done it 5 times.
Have you?
Yeah. First 2 times I went on the camp crew. I got talked into it by a buddy of mine who was head of the camp. He says, come on, this is going to be a lot of fun. Well, it was a lot of work.
A lot of I'm sure it is. Sure it is.
Yeah, and then I went 3 years as a drover.
Yeah.
Working with the cows.
Yeah. So tell us about the campfire meals.
Oh, well, I love Dutch oven cooking. I do a lot of cooking for the Rodeo Association.
Oh.
I cook for our work day for everybody out there, and we used to have trail rides every year. I did all the cooking on that, and so that we try to be as authentic as we can. And we've got one of the world's greatest Dutch oven cooks, Terry Bell, and Randy gives her a hand once in a while, but he's kind of in charge of the guests now in the activities there. But we cater and have somebody come out and do the cooking and provide the meals for the guests, and they're fabulous. Terry does a lot of the breakfasts.
We love Terry and Randy. We've met them, know them, and love her food.
Excellent.
Love her food and love Dutch oven cooking. I mean, it's a great way.
It's
to
the
go
greatest
on
way in the world to cook.
It is.
I cook a lot at home, Dutch oven.
Do you? Yeah.
I really enjoy it.
We haven't started yet. We're thinking about it.
Give it a try. You can't go wrong. Just don't overcook. Well, I think along with the Dutch oven cooking, along with the cowboy way of life, and all of the things that we really love here in Reno, change is inevitable. And what I see in the valley is we're losing all of our
Ranch land.
ranch land. Developers, they can make a lot of money, so they want to buy, and the rancher, by the time he gets through fighting the government and fighting everything else and the cost of doing business, just kind of gives up and says, hey, I'll sell my land. And I've seen that happen time and again, starting right in the town itself, and then slowly it's moving out. I can remember dairies and Sparks, right along Queens Way. There were several dairies, and those guys all moved down to Fallon, and the Curdy family that had dairies here forever just slowly squeezed them all out. So I think, and it
Called urban sprawl.
urban sprawl, and now they're starting to move, up onto our foothills. So, but I don't think the cowboy way of life is ever going to go away. I know we try to keep it with the Reno Rodeo. We've got a legacy plan that we're all been looking at for several years. And
That's the good news. Tell us about
we're
that.
trying to redo the grounds. We're going to stay put on the fairgrounds. The state owns that land,
Oh, it does.
and it's kind of a convoluted lease type thing. They lease it to the county, and the county has the RSCVA do the management of the whole thing. So it's hard to work through all of those, but we've managed to do it, and we put a lot of our own money into repairing and fixing and improving, and we're going to do it again. We're going to build a new arena.
Oh, you are?
It's going to be on the north end. It's going to be a really nice facility. We're going to have a parking garage kind of in where the arena is now, and it's going to take a lot of money, but I think the Reno Rodeo Association will be able to do it.
And are you thinking about a museum of some sort?
We are. I've been dreaming and working on the museum for years. I've stored stuff in my garage for years. And a few years ago, I went out and got a climate-controlled storage unit so that I could keep old saddles. And, the Bartley Ranch
Yes.
Park, have you heard of that? Well,
Yes.
Gus Bartley was a good friend of mine.
Was he?
And we have his saddle that he won at the Reno Rodeo.
Oh,
So
do you?
to try to keep that where nothing happens to it so that we can display it in a museum, we had to have a facility. So we have a museum committee, and we're working hard on putting all of these artifacts together. And we're going to have that. Someday we're going to have a museum on the grounds there, and we'll be able to show not only just Reno Rodeo history, but Western history from the whole valley.
That's
So
great.
we're out reaching out, we're trying to gather things from different people that have lived here in the community. I have Charlie Mapes' saddle. I
Oh,
have
do
his
you?
wife's saddle. We have the Mapes Trophy, which used to be a coveted award that was passed around. And so we've got some neat things that we're going to be able to display.
Well, Sandy and I hail from Southern California.
Uh-huh.
We used to go annually to the Big Bash at the Gene Autry
Oh.
Museum.
Beautiful place.
It is. It's gorgeous. And,
I was there once and spent the whole day. I just
yeah,
really
you can
enjoyed
spend
that.
a week there.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think we'll ever be that big, but I think we'll have a pretty nice museum here to be proud of in Reno.
Well, one thing they did there that I really enjoyed most of all, and every time they had their annual event, they used to have Western artists
Mhm.
from all over the country exhibit. And they used
Definitely.
to have charity auctions, and
Yeah.
they would donate some of their paintings. And that was a really great exhibition of Western art.
Definitely.
I'd like to see you folks do that at some point in time.
I would like to also. I think that would be really neat.
Well, it gives us something to look forward to.
Very much so.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us.
Good luck.